All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And a big good morning to everyone. And good morning to Kim and Albert. And they have turned off the power at my home, which is why I am kind of, it's that Volodymyr Zelensky feel, you know, right after the Ukraine thing started, where he'd show up somewhere, you didn't know where it was, and all these different backgrounds. That's kind of where we are today. So,
I mean, the good thing is no one's trying to kill you. So, you know.
That is true. No, the parallel really ends with the shot, you know. Yes, I agree. But the point is we are in a sort of funky, different temp environment just for the day. I kind of felt as though I was talking to Kim before we went on the air, as I was scrambling and get everything together, and, you know, I don't have any of my normal stuff and configuration, even though this is a really cool setup and they're really cool to let me be here, you know. I thought, why don't you just let Kim host the show?
Hey, everybody wants Mark Thompson.
No, it wasn't that. It was that I felt like I always feel as though I want to show you that I'm committed to this project.
Yeah.
And so whenever there's a challenge, I feel as though, okay, well then I'll do X to deal with this challenge. You know, I'll step up.
Sure.
So I feel like this project of taking this radio show to YouTube and taking it to the internet as we begin to grow it, and maybe some other platforms, I feel as though those challenges have involved me stepping up.
You have a very strong work ethic.
I want to show you that I step up. Yeah, so that's why I'm doing it this way.
I wish your volume was up just a little bit.
Okay, I can turn it up a little bit. Oh, no, I don't know if I can turn it up.
I feel like I need to hear you more.
I can turn you up, Mark.
Okay. Albert can turn me up.
Okay, good.
Okay, cool. Hey, there's a lot to do today. It's Friday. It's our Big Friday show, which is another reason I wanted to step up today. And I'll just start from the last thing in the show and work back to the first thing in the show. Last thing, of course, is Michael Snyder, who comes in, the Marina Times columnist and the Marina Times critic. He'll be here with movies, with television, with stuff we should watch. Prior to that, Jim Avila and Michael Shure on politics. It's a very big week, as you know, with the discovery of documents in the custody, if you will, of Joe Biden. And there's an equivalency being played out between the Biden documents and the Trump documents. We talked about it yesterday. There are some equivalent issues. I'd suggest one of them is, hey, what the hell's going on with keeping track of documents with these guys? I mean, there is a real, I think, legitimate conversation you can have about government documents, where they end up, and who's keeping track of where they end up. The equivalency after that, I think, begins to break down. I don't think the Trump situation and the Biden situation are similar. But again, we're just learning some things about it. And a special counsel has been appointed. And in typical Garland fashion and in typical Joe Biden administration fashion, they find these counsels and special counsels who are not necessarily so friendly toward them, which is, I don't know what they're trying to prove. But okay, you know, if you're trying to win over the GOP with your decisions as to who the special counsel will be, this just in, you won't win them over. So in any case, that's a Democratic move. They oftentimes make that move. And then, of course, working back, we have Friday Fabulous Florida. But in the first half hour and right out of the chute, our pal, friend of the show, and most popular guy in all of the Bay Area, because we're desperate for weather information, having been battered by so many unrelenting storms and this soaking that continues. Please welcome Spencer Christian, everybody. Come on.
Good morning. Good morning.
Spencer, so great to have you with us always, and I want to get right to it. Is the you had talked yesterday about these generally level 2 storms, is what you're talking about on the storm index that you guys do, which I think is a really good idea. And I've talked about, you know, things that I think are, you know, like atmospheric river is just a new thing that they use. Spencer and I, when we were coming up, it was the pineapple connection or whatever. But whatever thing catches on. But I really like the assigning of a number like a storm index. I think that's a great way for all of us who are consumers of the information to be able to sort of plan, you know. So you were talking yesterday about these level 2 storms. So have things changed, and what is the timing? Can you fill us in?
Sure. Yeah. So today, excuse me, today's storm is still a level 2 storm, what we call a storm of moderate intensity. The first wave of it came through earlier this morning. You probably noticed we had some downpours and some gusty winds. We're in a little bit of a break now. There'll be some showers for the remainder of the middle part of the day. And then the second wave of this level 2 storm is expected to come in sometime between about 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. That's when we expect some more heavy downpours and some more fairly strong wind gusts. And that'll probably play itself out in the early evening hours, between like 6 and 8 p.m. But the more significant storm is a level 3 that's coming in overnight and into tomorrow morning. That's a strong storm. That'll produce heavy downpours from, starting maybe like 4 a.m. It'll start raining, but the heaviest of the storm will be between about 6 a.m. tomorrow and noon. And we can expect wind gusts between 35 and 55 miles an hour. We've got high surf warning out for tomorrow. We expect wave heights to exceed 25 feet.
Wow.
If there's any good news in this, it is that we expect this storm to be essentially over by early afternoon, which is when the 49ers are playing. Just some light showers after that.
Wow.
Yeah,
so this is a fairly potent, not as potent as the big one that moved through,
right.
But fairly potent, and especially on the heels of the big one that moved through, it might present some problems. Probably will present some problems.
It will, Mark. And excuse me, flood watch will be in effect. Well, it's in effect now, but will probably be in effect through Monday afternoon, because of the saturated soil and all the rain that's yet to come. Wind damage is a really big consideration, a concern this weekend, because we've got more gusts with the wave coming in this afternoon and even stronger gusts tomorrow in the morning hours. There is good news in the forecast, though. Around midweek next week, we see a big ridge of high pressure building that will probably dominate our weather from maybe Wednesday or Thursday into next weekend. So these storms we're experiencing today and tomorrow may be the last big ones for a while. And even the rain we get Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is probably going to get lighter and lighter as that high pressure ridge builds in.
Oh, that's the best news. That's just awesome. Yeah. So I can ask you this question on the way out. John Smith, probably not his real name, but anyway, he asks, did you find out what Spencer's fountain of youth is? Did he fall in a bomb cyclone and go back in time to DH? People are so impressed. You keep on keeping on, man.
Well, look, I guess genetics must play a role, but there are things people can do to, hold on to a little bit of their youth. I exercise regularly. I mean, pretty intense workouts, and I eat sensibly. I don't starve myself and deny myself the pleasure of indulging in foods that I enjoy. But I eat very little red meat. I don't eat fried foods, greasy foods, fatty foods. Lots of fruits and veggies and fish. And as I said yesterday, think youthful thoughts.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know.
You're a big one on that.
I don't know about any of that. I think it's the wine.
Oh, red wine.
Yeah, that's the red wine. I think it's the red wine. It's kind of preserved everything. I don't know. Exercise. Nah, it's the wine.
It's the resveratrol in the red wine grapes. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I drink red wine like it's my job, and I can promise you it ain't working. So it's got to be more than just the red wine. Spencer, you look great, but you sound great, and you, of course, you're so knowledgeable, and you're such a pal for so many years. We love that you're a part of the show. Have a great weekend, and let's possibly reconnect on Monday. We'll probably need one more visit with you before too long.
It'll be a much brighter outlook, no pun intended, on Monday.
All right. All right. Spencer Christian. Bye, Spencer.
Hey, all right.
Have a good one. All right. Go Niners. Go
It's
Niners.
so nice to come on with us so
Mark Thompson
so often.
Show.
Yeah, right on. So Lisa Marie Presley died.
Yeah.
Suddenly. She was just at the Golden Globes. I saw video of her at the Golden Globes, and she looked weak. But she didn't look like she was going to be loaded into an ambulance and be dying. Give us some details on that, Kim.
So a lot of details came out late last night. Other than just being shocked that she passed away, she apparently Thursday morning, suffered some type of medical emergency. It looks like a cardiac arrest. Her housekeeper found her. Her ex-husband was at the house. His name is I never say the last name right. Danny Kia. He
Okay.
started CPR. The ambulance comes, puts her under CPR. They regain a pulse, and then she's taken to the hospital, and she does not survive the day at the hospital. So that's what happened. There she is.
She is the only daughter, the only child of Elvis.
And Priscilla, yeah.
Mhm.
She was 54 years old. So
What did Priscilla have to say about it?
she is with her dad. Priscilla says, issued a statement saying, "It is with a heavy heart that I must share the devastating news that my beautiful daughter, Lisa Marie, has left us. She was the most passionate, strong, loving woman I have ever known. We ask for privacy as we try to deal with this profound loss. Thank you for the love and prayers. At this time, there will be no further comment." And I was thinking about her interesting life. She was married 4 times. Michael Jackson, Nicolas Cage among her husbands. She had 4 kids with Danny Kia and Michael Lockwood, inherited Graceland. But for all the, you know, good, interesting things, she had some real tragedy. She had the death of her father when she was 9 years old, the suicide of her son just a couple of years ago. He was 27 when he took his life. She divorced 4 times. She had financial troubles. At one time, she came out after one of her divorces saying she's just dead broke. That's it. The public eye was on her all the time. She couldn't do anything, you know. So I don't know. She wrote recently after the death of her son about grief in People magazine. She said, "I've dealt with death, grief, and loss since the age of 9 years old. I've had more than anyone's fair share of it in my lifetime, and somehow I've made it this far." So,
I mean, that's so true. I thought it interesting, and I don't mean to, you know, um, I think you characterize it accurately when you talk about the high profile nature of her, the high profile nature of her life and the expectations and sort of the unrelenting nature of press coverage. I think these can all be difficult things to deal with. Um, that said, it's odd that she was uber wealthy, right? The Elvis estate was an immense estate. $100 million was
right.
what she inherited, and yet she ended up $16 million in debt. Uh, how does that happen? I I don't know. Um, it's a it was a world, the Elvis Presley empire world, that was characterized by all sorts of stuff like that, right? I mean, even the Presley death was one. I'm talking about her dad was one of bizarre indulgence and decadence meets malpractice on the part of a
Yeah.
doctor. So I just was I was astounded that was the case. That she was someone who should never had to have to worry about money, of course, and yet she died a debtor in effect, $16 million in debt.
So when you talk about who she leaves behind, obviously her mom, Priscilla, and she's got a 33-year-old daughter from one marriage, and she has twins that are 14 years old. So twin daughters, and I have a 13-year-old daughter, and when I think about not being around for her, my heart breaks. So
Of course, yeah.
my heart is with her 14-year-old girls today.
Uh, the apparently and this and you may feel that this is I mean, obviously our heart goes out to the family and I mean
Yeah.
I feel like that's I mean I guess we can say that um the uh the father's estate um apparently was um so substantial, but there was quite a cash burn going on, and again, she made a lot of money from doing 3 albums herself, as
Yeah.
you may also be aware. She's a recording artist in her own right. Um, in fact, one of her albums reached number 5 on the album charts on Billboard in 2000. Um,
It's interesting. I think I was listening to some of her music last night, and it's pretty good. But I think she was uh, at the detriment of always being compared to her dad. How does she sound compared to him? Oh,
sure.
she's no Elvis, you know? So I think that almost played against her in a bit and a little bit. A lot of internet traffic last night was talking about, oh, it's the COVID vaccine that did it. Uh, Obviously dumb, right? But this text from CR, so many sudden deaths from cardiac arrest. How many of these are the result of damage that COVID does to the cardiovascular system? Everyone is pretending COVID is not involved in these deaths. I mean, I maybe, who knows?
Well, I would like to say something about that, and I've had some strong feelings about it. So, CR, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll double back. I just want to finish my point on Lisa Marie and her money. I know that this is how can you talk about this? She's just died. She's not even,
Yeah.
because it's a bizarre curiosity. I was trying to make the point in a kaleidoscope of other curiosities, which was the Presley fortune, estate, and everything else, and the details of their lives. She had a business manager who uh, invested and counseled investment in a lot of things that lost her money and lost her fortune. Now, I don't know if that was the entire reason, but for example, she was involved in the American Idol holding company, which ended up going bankrupt. He recommended that. And I think she sued this guy. Okay. So there was a definite question as to who her business manager was and whether he had her best interest at heart. In any case, she loses all of that money. Now, as to that, the cause of death, I think it is a very reasonable question. I made this point last night when we were all sort of kicking around the cause of death and
Yeah.
how she was so young and died of a cardiac arrest, that once again, somebody very young dies of cardiac problems. And I was shouted out of the room as being an anti-vaxxer. And I said, hey, this has nothing to do with the vaccine. Okay. You can believe what you want about the vaccine. I'm vaxxed. Okay. You've got no issue with me. I'm vaxxed. I'm boosted, all that crap. But COVID does and has had an effect on the number of people who are succumbing to these cardiac issues. And if you look, and this isn't conspiracy theory, if you look at the Cedars-Sinai website, that's not a conspiracy website. Look at Cedars-Sinai, you'll see that. And by the way, we've talked about this before. I posted this here right on this show, that in the first 2 years of COVID, there was almost a 30% increase in cardiac arrest and cardiac complications among young people, younger demographic, up to age 40. So you can't tell me that COVID has nothing to do with this. I would suggest that this environment in which COVID is prevalent has yielded, and it's statistically borne out, has yielded cardiac issues. I don't know whether Lisa Marie Presley died of a COVID-related issue, but I'm saying it's a defendable argument since nobody really knows right now.
I
Now,
have a
I was going to say last thing. If she had a history of heart issues, if she had some kind of
yeah.
personal history that mitigates against that, that's different. But not knowing anything, I don't think it's unreasonable to say, I'd like to know if there was some connection there. It seems as though there are a lot of these kinds of deaths.
Well, I don't know if it is different because I think people that have had heart issues or maybe underlying heart issues that they don't even know about may be more affected by COVID than they even realize. And this is why I think that. I have a very good friend. I'll call her my best friend. And her father-in-law recently died, and he was in his late 60s. He had a heart valve issue, and had been fine. Rancher, he was physical every day. Yeah, he wasn't in the best of health, but he wasn't looking like someone who was ready to die either. He got COVID, and recovered from it, and 6 months later was in the hospital, and the doctor said, "Look, COVID did a number on your heart valve, and you're too sick to go through the surgery to replace it." And so I think COVID can affect cardiovascular health in ways that people didn't predict. So in that case, you're right, and he did pass away just about a month ago.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Well, there is among the comments that are showing up in the chat, there is one that I feel they're all good, but I think that there's one that could be applicable here, and that is that the family did have a history of cardiac issues. So
Yeah.
it's not without some context that we have this conversation. Now, again, whether these issues pertain to her situation, we don't know, but it is fair to make that point. And so, yeah, obviously we're speculating, but uh, beyond Lisa Marie, there were other passings, by the way. I hate to finish on Friday with a passing. You'll keep track of the clock. I don't have all my normal clocks and stuff helping me with it. So, Albert,
Yeah.
you'll tell us if we're
good on time.
okay.
Yep, we're good.
And I sent Steve the link, right? I sent it to him. Yeah. So
I'll send him another one so he could make his Friday appearance.
But yeah, and I have a Johns Hopkins stats on COVID and heart. We can talk about it next week. But I've given you the thumbnail. I've given you the summary on it.
Yeah.
Evel Knievel's son Robbie passed away. Robbie Knievel was only 60 years old. Now he had cancer. I have many experiences with Robbie Knievel and the Knievel family.
Yeah,
and
didn't you host that show on Fox, Mark, with Robbie?
Yeah, I hosted all of his jumps on Fox, and he used to do a lot of them. He jumped a part of the Grand Canyon. That was interesting. I'll double back to tell you about that in a second. And my favorite jump of Robbie's was the building to building jump in Las Vegas, the top of one building to the top of another building. And first of all, that's a cool jump, no matter what. But here's why it was even cooler. Because the buildings weren't right up against each other on the same latitude. You had to jump kind of corner to corner to get to so they were just a little askew. And that made it even more exciting. So they had hay bales set up for his landing, at the end of the ramp. But he had to land and lay the bike down in order to make that. And we'd show this to you, but for the same reason we can't play you Lisa Marie's music and everything, we'll get copyright strikes and all the rest, so I can't. So, but you can find it on YouTube and you can find it elsewhere. It was spectacular. And the other thing was, from a visual standpoint, for a television show, you see the lights of the Vegas Strip beginning to come on. Remember, it's done for the East Coast, so we went on the air at 5 o'clock. And at that time, it was sort of getting just a little bit dark. And so there was an eerie sense, of the sun setting and the night arriving in Las Vegas, and then this very courageous, high-profile stunt in prime time. So Robbie Knievel's daughter, sang the national anthem. And before we went on the air, we had a production meeting at which I was told this: Mark, you'll speak to Robbie right before Robbie takes an elevator up to the top of one building. Then he'll go down the ramp and he takes some test runs up and down the ramp and kind of like there's all that showy aspect to it. And then he'll jump. But when you talk to Robbie, I want you to be aware of something, and that is that he and his father, Evel Knievel, are not getting along, but they're like really not getting along. So don't mention Evel Knievel to him. And that was a good thing to hear, because you could say, well, your dad, Evel Knievel, did many things, but he never jumped building a building. Or you could say, I know your dad, Evel Knievel, is watching, in Utah today, or wherever he was, Idaho. I forget where Evel Knievel was living at the time. Maybe California. And but I didn't. I thought, okay, I got that. Good. Then they do a bunch of other stuff about, what happens if he dies. They have all kinds of contingency things. And if he dies, we go to a live shot and we go to commercial. So I mean, literally, they go through this stuff. I know. So
That's a production meeting.
yeah, I mean, it was pretty wild. So on the way out, the producer like literally pulls me and he goes, "Hey, Mark, I just want to make this clear. Robbie and Evil are not getting along. Don't mention Evil Knievel. Just don't mention him at all. Don't mention him to Robbie. Don't mention him in the context of the show. Just don't mention him." I said, "I got it. I get it. Don't worry." So we go on the air, 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the East. Sun is setting on Las Vegas. This is going to be the big building to building jump. There's all that big music, announce, lights, blah, 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 blah. And then you set up all of the different scenarios. We have these tape pieces that roll in. What if he's too short? His bike will hit and he'll go tumbling down to the Vegas Strip. What if he overshoots it? His bike may stay on the roof, but he'll go tumbling down to the Vegas Strip on the other side. So you had all of these animations and stuff. It was all to show you how dangerous it was, right? It was good TV. So then Robbie comes out, I don't know, maybe a half hour into the show. His daughter sings the national anthem. He comes out and he's in white leathers with the stars and stripes. Okay, this is Robbie Knievel, who just passed away. And he looks great. He looks like Captain Robbie Knievel, as he was called,
Sure.
Captain with a K. So he leaves and begins his walk, and they go to commercial. And during the commercial break, he's walking to me. During the commercial break, before he gets to me, the producer runs out of the trailer and says, "Mark, don't forget what I told you. Nothing about Evil. They're not getting on." I said, "Dude, I got it. Nothing about Evil. Enough with the I'm not going to mention Evil." We come back on the air. Robbie just beginning to come up to me, and I go, "Robbie, this is a challenging jump from so many different standpoints. You have to jump, I would think, in a way that you typically don't jump," or whatever I said,
Sure.
And he looked at me and said, "Mark, this is going to be a difficult jump for me. And I'm just glad my father, Evil Knievel, is watching tonight from a hospital bed." And I'm thinking, dude, seriously? Like right out of the chute, you mentioned your dad? Right. I've just gotten chapter and verse about how we can't talk about your dad. And that's the first thing you mentioned is your father. And he went on for like 2.5, 3 minutes about how his dad is a big influence in his life. It was crazy. It was like the whole conversation was about Evil Knievel, but I didn't start it.
Yeah.
So then he got up, he takes the elevator to the roof, he, revs the engine and he jumps, and it was spectacular. And they had a jib shot from behind. That was my favorite shot, where you see him almost a point of view from top of the ramp shooting down. You see him going from that ramp to the rooftop of the other building. And it was, as I say, it was magnificent. By far the best jump. And that was my favorite. Robbie Knievel's successful jump, and everything was great. When he jumped the Grand Canyon, it was wet. It had snowed the night before, and he decided not to jump. And we did an hour show, but I think I told you that story, Kim, didn't I tell you what the network executive told me?
No.
He comes in and he says, "It's just me and the network executive." And this is like 15 minutes before we're going to go on. And we have, it was me and, Susie Colbert. She does the NFL on Fox, I think now, or isn't she NFL on Fox, Albert, or she ESPN?
Yeah, she's
ESPN.
been on ESPN. I remember her on NBC also. She's
she was like
every
the
major network.
She was like the reporter that you throw out to, like she's standing at the ramps going, "Susie, let's check in on the how the ramps are, because Robbie has got to make this very difficult jump, and the ramps have been damp, and let's go to Susie Colbert." And she goes, the ramps have been wet overnight, but they're starting to dry out, whatever she said. So it's just me and the network executive as he walks in and he says, "Mark, Robbie Knievel has decided he's not going to jump. He feels the ramps are slick and it's too risky. But we have a show to do. So we're going to do an hour, and you cannot say that Robbie is going to jump, because that would be a lie. We know that Robbie is not going to jump. And you cannot say that he's not going to jump. Because if you say Robbie's not going to jump, even though we know he's not going to jump, no one will watch. And then he took a pause. I'll never forget it. Tom Sheets is the guy's name. He's great. And he leans over and he pats me on the side of my shoulder, like right here. And he goes, "So good luck."
And so you had to tiptoe and dance around it all night. Yeah.
It was actually really, it was interesting. In a way, it was easy for most of, you just never said anything. You talked about the conditions. You talked about how the conditions threaten whether or not he's going to jump.
Right.
You could see with conditions like this, how someone would not necessarily be anxious to jump, maybe blah, 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 blah. You talk about all of these different things, but we just,
You have
anyway.
to be smart about it. Yeah.
Anyway, but Robbie was he lived hard for sure. He was a drinker, and he played guitar on top of one of the mobile homes they set up this kind of base camp. It was like midnight, and I hear this electric guitar playing, and I open the door. It's cold out. You understand? It was snowing, as I say, that during the night, and it's Robbie playing guitar. I mean, he's just he was out there, but he created a name for himself, and of course, he lived in the shadow of his dad, Evel Knievel. But
it's
60 years old.
I mean, it's sad but interesting that and clearly he was smart about knowing when to jump and when not to, but after all the risks that he took in his life, that he would die of pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
That's a horrible way to go.
It's a brutal cancer, from what I'm told. I mean, it's painful and awful, and yeah, I mean, it's sad that we know the good cancers and the bad cancers. It's all bad. When I go on and on about these things, we talked about gas stoves yesterday, or plastic, or these PFAs, or whatever gets into the environment, that I see these toxins everywhere, and we're bathing in them. And you wonder why I get so mad about it, because they definitely provoke a cancer rate that's far in excess of what it should be. And why shouldn't we try to roll that back? So you're right. I mean, that pancreatic cancer is supposed to be just horrible, and sad that he succumbed to that. Yeah. But smash the like button like a boss, if you would, please.
Smash it with your iron rod.
That's
Smash that like button with your iron rod. Damn it, do it. Smash it. Hit the thumbs up. You're watching in replay. We love you. Love my replay viewers. I read all the comments, and I try to, and here's why. Someday I hope we're big enough that it will be impossible for me to read all the comments. That's my dream. But right now I'm trying to build something. I'm trying to, you can see I'm invested in something. I'm dealing with the challenge of not having my studio today. So we come to another studio. I'm going to show up for you every chance I can. I know Kim feels the same way. Everybody in this effort is involved with the same degree of commitment. But I read those comments so that I can see what you're thinking, and I try to respond. And every person who's a Patreon member and every person who's a PayPal supporter, I write back to them if I can. I get told, I get a little thing saying, Bob in Milpitas just became a Patreon member, and then I'll write back to Bob in Milpitas. I'll say, hey, thank you. Those are not form communications. That's me writing to you. And I want you to know we're committed to this relationship we have with you. So themarkthompsonshow.com is where you go. themarkthompsonshow.com. Click contribute. You can contribute on Patreon or on PayPal. Those are great ways to support this show. Do I have time for a quick visit with with Steve Moskowitz? Okay. Albert, will you play the punctuation music, please? The stinger.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you. I cannot move from element to element without it. That's the broadcaster in me. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Come on, put it together for Steve Moskowitz.
Please excuse my voice today. Is a little challenge, but I'm sure after the weekend I'll be fine.
Oh, honey.
Yeah. You poor guy, man. You don't sound great. Well, I'll do a little more talking maybe than I would in our normal interactions.
But I'm happy to talk to you, and thanks for your email about what do you do when you can't pay your taxes, and I'm delighted to talk about that. And Mark, that's a real common problem. People can't pay their taxes. But what you shouldn't do is stick your head in the sand, because the IRS is going to come and get you. These new 87,000 agents that they're in the process of hiring, First of all, they have to do something. And second of all, President Biden, when he started this, said that for every dollar he invests in the IRS, he expects to get multiple dollars back, which makes sense from a business point of view. So what do you do if you can't pay your taxes? You just don't have the money. A lot of things. One's an offer and compromise. That's where you offer to pay part and they forgive the rest. That's real good. There's different grounds for that. Another one is monthly payments. Another one is getting the penalties forgiven. Another one is something called a hardship deferral, where you've lost your job or your business, took a downturn. Just give you a while to get back on your feet and make a deal. There's so many good things you can do, but don't wait till they clean out your bank account. Or worse yet, they go to your customers and say, don't pay you, pay IRS. That will ruin your business. Your clients will leave you. Just come to us. In almost all cases, we can do everything for you. You don't talk to the government, deal with them, have anything to do with them. We do the whole job.
It's interesting that it's a negotiation. You know, when you're negotiating, you really want a guy who's negotiated before with that party. And that is a guy like you, Steve.
We've done thousands and thousands of these, literally. And that's what experience is all about. You know, I don't want a doctor doing his or her first surgery. I want somebody that has done this surgery lots of times before and says, oh, ho hum, another one of those. That's the doctor I want.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And that's such a great parallel. And then you want to avoid the situation if you can avoid it, and you do that with Moskowitz. I recommend, Steve, in every way, setting up a business. Again, if you have forgotten or otherwise pushed aside certain aspects of filing taxes, contact Steve Moskowitz, 888-TAX-DEAL. Even if you're just filing what you think is a routine return, the reality is Steve can see advantages and ways in which you can file that will get you money. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also reach him online, MoskowitzLLP.com, Moskowitz, Moskowitz, LLP.com. Steve, feel better. We'll talk next hour. Okay, my friend. Yeah, Steve Moskowitz, everybody.
I feel that. It's a throat coat situation. You need the throat coat tea, you know?
Oh, look at you with the throat coat. Is that what the
that's what
Dr.
the broadcasters
Kim recommends?
use.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
That's what the radio people use, is the throat
Dr.
coat.
Kim, I see that it's late. Can you do a little news? Then we'll do Florida, because I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, well, then do you want me to do long news or short news?
I've rushed. I haven't been to the bathroom in hours. So I'm like, yeah, well, I'll need a couple of minutes.
Well, okay, so how about if I do news, and then when I hear you pipe in and comment on a story, I'll know I can wrap it up because you're
Very
back.
good. Okay, I'll go with that. All right, thank you.
This is
Albert,
how we roll.
You'll need to play. I don't think I sent you the. Oh, I did. Well,
oh, yeah.
There it is. Wow. Bravo.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. Ooh, what is that? Yep. Okay, so in news writing, there's a lot of people that will sometimes start a story by saying, this person is lucky to be alive. And it's kind of cliche and kind of considered lazy writing. But I'm actually going to go there with this guy. His name is Maurice Henao. And yes, he is lucky to be taking some breaths today. He's from Malibu. He was walking over to where his car was parked on the Pacific Coast Highway when he gets a call from his girlfriend. And she says, hey, I left something back at the house. You got to go pick it up for me. So he turns around to go back to the house to get her bag. And he starts feeling and hearing this rumble from the hillside. And then a massive boulder slams down right on top of his Prius. So had she not called to ask for her stuff, he'd likely have been crushed right along with the Prius. Now he's apparently worried that the hillside is still unstable and it could actually slide down into his home. He says the rock is the size of the whole roof, could have hurt anybody or killed someone. He said, I feel like it's almost a Final Destination move, but in real life. Again, he's still worried about the potential of the rocks continuing to slide and hurting homes in the area. But wow,
Smash
that
it
Prius
with your iron rod.
or with a giant rock from the hillside. That's pretty funny. Okay, so this picture of Highway 92, it comes from the CHP in Redwood City. big old sinkhole closed down both lanes of Highway 92. This is between Skyline and Pillarcitos Creek, and it looks like they took most of yesterday. And I don't know if the road has been reopened yet or not, but some major sinkholes have opened up around California. This yet another one. And I will say, Friday's getaway day, a lot of people thinking that it's a great day to head to Tahoe. Yeah, it's really not. As a matter of fact, the National Weather Service is discouraging anyone from heading to the Sierra over the holiday weekend. They say anyone planning to drive in the mountains should finish their travel by 1 o'clock this afternoon. They highly discourage travel from that point through Monday night because they say blowing winds and heavy snow will cause whiteout conditions. So SF Gate has a big write-up on that, and they are saying if you're going to the Sierra, either do it now or don't do it at all, because by 1 o'clock, you need to be parked wherever and inside and stay that way. That's just the way it is. U.S. Treasury is warning that the nation will hit its debt limit next week. Janet Yellen notifying Congress that the Treasury Department will begin taking steps to avoid default once the debt limit is reached. In a letter to Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Yellen says the Treasury is not currently able to estimate how long those actions will let the U.S. continue to pay for government obligations. She is urging Congress act promptly to protect the full faith and credit of the United States. And former President Trump's family real estate company is being fined, well, $1.6 million. This after its conviction over a scheme to defraud. The guilty verdict last month held the Trump organization liable for the criminal conduct of some of its top executives, mainly Alan Weisselberg. The former chief financial officer was sentenced to 5 months in jail this week. The organization convicted on more than a dozen counts for the scheme that lasted more than a decade. The top Democrat in the Senate is vowing to fight tooth and nail against what he calls the extremist wing of the Republican Party. In a letter to his Democratic colleagues, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized the latest actions of the new Republican-controlled House, arguing the party has focused on serving wealthy special interests and pushing what he called the ultra-MAGA proposals. Among those Schumer cited, the passage of a bill to gut funding for the IRS, legislation to restrict abortion access, and the creation of a committee to scrutinize investigations by the Justice Department.
Wow.
And, here you are. Cryptocurrency exchange, Crypto.com is laying off a large part of its staff. Its CEO announced the company is laying off 20% of its workforce because of economic headwinds and unforeseeable industry issues. And that includes the recent collapse of cryptocurrency exchange platform FTX. The CEO said the reduction in staff, part of the company's continued focus on prudent financial management. And lastly, archaeologists in Israel say they found prehistoric ostrich eggs near an ancient fire pit. CNN says they estimate them to be as old as 7,500 years. Due to them being found near a fire pit, the Israel Antiquities Authority says they may have been collected by desert nomads who used that campsite. And this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, please call Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also find him online at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Call me a liar. Is that what you call me?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No, no, no.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret now?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
All right. Woo-hoo. Good times.
I had no idea that bump was that long.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm running late, and Albert plays the longest bump we have. We have these bumps to give us time to do certain things. And of course, Albert, but I thought, we did rock it out. Nice job.
People want to know who that was at the door.
I believe that was John Cryer.
I thought it was John Cryer. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, or someone who looks a lot like John Cryer. So very, very cool. John Cryer and his wife, two dear people who are so lovely to let me just, crash here because we needed a place to do the show. And so they live not far from me. So they let me come here. This is really great. I have to tell you something really quick, though. This is, so I'm down here kind of in this area. They have a whole studio set up, where they do this.
Yeah.
I hadn't planned to talk about this, but it was just kind of funny. We just mentioned it now that we can pull back the curtain a little bit. So I'm looking for the bathroom while Kim's News is going on. And I don't know this downstairs area or whatever. I open a door and it's like some equipment room. It's not the bathroom. Open another door and it's a movie theater.
Oh.
But there's no bathroom. Funny. So I'm thinking, is there a bathroom in this movie theater? I don't want to. And Kim's doing the news. I got to get back here, right?
Yeah.
So then I go to a third door, and it's, what was it? It was something else. It was also not a
not the bathroom.
Not a bathroom. So then I go upstairs. I'm trying to be so unobtrusive because they've got some meeting of their own going on.
Yeah.
And I go upstairs, and the dogs start barking. Okay,
I heard.
So the dogs
are in the news. Yeah.
Yeah. So the dogs are barking. I'm trying to find the bathroom. It was really pretty comical. So anyway, so we're so late.
Oh, it's Thompson again.
We're so late. I want to thank everybody who's leaving us super stickers and super chats. It's a great way to support us. Can we do those at the bottom of the next hour, Albert? We can do all the acknowledgments. Are you good with that?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Because I think otherwise we're not going to have time for Florida. I'm just thinking from a planning standpoint. Yeah. But I want to let you know that I see everybody who's stepping up. So thanks to the whole crew leaving us super stickers and super chats. Really great to have your support. It is Friday. We put together the collection of news from the most offbeat, bizarre state. Although there is competition with both California, Texas, other states, but still they're number one. This is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
By the way, shout out to a listener who did that graphic for us, a listener in the North Bay, graphic artist in the North Bay. Very, very cool. Thank you for that. A Florida woman tries to slip her emotional support snake past TSA.
What?
This could, very much be the Florida story.
Snake, huh?
She was traveling from Tampa. She tried to slip her boa constrictor past the TSA inside her carry-on bag. When confronted, she called the reptile her emotional support snake. She called the snake Bartholomew. So he has a name.
Bartholomew makes me feel better.
He is the snake on the plane. That's how it starts. They did Instagram it, TSA. So they, I don't believe they let her
No.
on with it. No,
I
they
think
don't.
there's a small list of, therapeutic animals that are sanctioned, and I don't think snake's on the list.
Yeah. No, it is not. No, they are not. A sexual bondage date turned deadly when the victim, I should say, bit the man's genitals.
Oh.
Yeah, those are
Ouchies.
the bondage stuff is tricky though. You never know in the world of kink what people are into.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Investigators say that apparently this guy's bondage sex partner that he met online took offense to being bitten on the genitals. They arrested a 34-year-old suspect who's been charged with the killing, which is what happened, manslaughter and possession of methamphetamines. Oh, yeah, the guy died.
So which guy? The guy that was bitten on the private area, or the fellow that was the biter?
The guy who was wearing the bondage gear appeared to have trauma to his body, according to the medical examiner. And they don't say, I mean, it's tough, you're right, in a bondage situation, an aggressive
Biter or
sex
the bitey,
situation,
yeah.
biter or bitey, they
Yeah.
say that he was killed by blunt force trauma and strangulation, the victim,
Oh.
okay? But they don't mention the bite, so the bite might have been,
This whole thing went way too far.
yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It seemed like during well, we don't need that. I was gonna say I could give you more details, but I think we know how it happened.
I think I'm okay.
But no. Wait a minute. I do have a detail in answer to your question.
Mm-hmm.
Who died, biter or bitee? During oral sex, the victim bit down on the man's penis, which caused him to beat the victim.
Oh.
The victim suffered severe injuries and was knocked unconscious.
It was the bitey who got
Yeah.
who
The
is no
bitee
longer
did
with
not
us.
like being bitten, and he killed the other guy. He's now
The
under arrest.
biter. The biter is the dead one.
The biter is the dead
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Florida man accidentally shoots himself in the leg while allegedly attempting to burglarize a car. It's a wild idea.
That just might work.
A man accidentally shot himself in the leg during an alleged attempted burglary. This is in Okaloosa County, Florida. This guy was just out of jail on bond. He allegedly stole a firearm and was trying to break into this vehicle. By the way, he stole the firearm from another car that he'd broken into, was trying to break into this other car, and then he accidentally shot himself. A woman outside her home who heard it, heard him also yell, "I've been shot," and she called the cops. And so man who shoots himself after breaking into the second car ends up getting help that way. A Florida man buys a $4.9 million mansion using funds from a PPP loan scheme.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the American way. He bought a $4.9 million mansion in Seminole County. Authorities say that 47-year-old Don Cisternino of Seminole County fraudulently secured more than $7.2 million in emergency funding through a paycheck protection program, those PPP loans. And, that was supposed to help out people who were suffering from COVID-19 pandemic economic effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were required to use the PPP loans for payroll costs, interest on mortgages, these kinds of things, rent, utilities. Well, he used it to buy himself a beautiful house, 12,579 square feet, Kim, beautiful place there in Florida. It was a 12-acre estate. Now they're selling it for $4.9 million because he will no longer be needing it.
Has he not been paying attention to all the other people busted for stealing PPP loans to buy mansions at Disney World and such? Like, what makes you think you're so special that you're going to be the one that gets away with it?
Well, why didn't he buy the Ferrari the way the rest of them do? They all have a Ferrari. It's just, that's the go-to move.
Yeah.
Well, good news in Miami. The Museum of Sex is going to open a new outpost in Miami. Yes, thank you.
Nice.
I know you've been waiting for it.
Yeah.
Apparently there's demand. There is a museum of sex in New York, and it is one of the top-rated attractions according to TripAdvisor.
Well, it's kind of like going to a sex shop, but in this case, without the shame or blame, because it's a museum, right?
Exactly.
So
Thank
one
you.
could argue that it's a highbrow activity.
They have robots, the sexy robot. They'll have 32,000 square feet of sex museum in the Miami area.
Yeah.
And it will, as Kim says, it'll have a quality to it of museum, 3 large gallery spaces. The opening exhibitions include a solo presentation from the Grammy Award-winning singer The Weeknd to open up the museum. Wow.
Oh.
What?
They mean business, huh?
Yeah, apparently. RuPaul apparently is a designer and is going to be part of it as well. They have a permanent installation called Super Funland, Journey into the Erotic Carnival. And I could tell you more, but I don't want to get a YouTube strike. All right. Did we do this story before? I don't know if we did. We didn't, I guess, if Albert put it in there. This is a Florida man who brazenly steals $5,500 in vacuums from Bed Bath & Beyond.
Oh, no.
It's a wild idea. This is a company, of course, Bed Bath & Beyond, that's already facing bankruptcy, as you know. And here they have a guy who, in Fort Myers, walks off with $5,500 in Dyson vacuums. Those are the ones that can pick up the bowling ball. And his whereabouts still unknown. Yeah, he got away with it, folks. Yeah, sometimes crime pays. And finally, this may be the story that gets my vote as the favorite. A woman who tried to rob a Pensacola bank fled the bank, but left her cell phone at the scene. Yes,
What?
Again, it's a wild idea.
What a dumbass.
She left her cell phone. Rebecca Marshall, 51, of Pensacola. She's charged with attempted robbery with a firearm, attempted grand theft. She's being held on over $100,000 bond. She robbed a bank, or tried to rob a bank, with a gun. She requested a $3,500 withdrawal. So the bank teller gave her a withdrawal slip to fill out. The woman wrote on the withdrawal slip, "I have a gun, do as I say," and then handed it back to the teller. The teller said she became so afraid she couldn't move. And the woman took the slip back and then left the bank, so without any money or anything. But when the cops got there, they found a cell phone at the teller's window. And surveillance video shows that it was the suspect leaving her cell phone there at the window.
I mean, you might as well leave your driver's license and a map to your house,
So the cops searched the cell phone through a warrant, and they find the owner of the phone is Rebecca Marshall. They searched the name in their database. They found Marshall's photo, matched the suspect on the surveillance video, and Marshall and another guy were involved in a recent string of robberies and incidents in the Florida area, and they closed in on Marshall and made the arrest. And that, my friends, wraps Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now, here.
So we're duty bound to pick a favorite. I'll just remind you what they are. And Albert, did you set up a poll in YouTube as to a couple of favorites?
I'll get that started now.
Okay, but I'm just, I don't know which ones you put in there. I'll tell you, just remind you of all of them quickly. Florida man a woman, I should say, tries to slip past TSA with the emotional support snake in her carry-on bag. Sexual bondage date turns deadly. Guy gets his genitals bit. Then he kills the guy because he didn't want his genitals bit. Florida man accidentally shooting himself in the leg while allegedly attempting to burglarize a second car. He'd ripped off the gun from the first car that he broke into. A Florida dude bought a $4.9 million mansion using PPP loan funds. The Museum of Sex is going to open in Miami. The Florida dude who went into Bed Bath & Beyond and stole $5,500 worth of vacuums. And finally, the woman who leaves her cell phone at the bank that she had just tried to rob. I ask you, Kim, what is your favorite?
I should pick the man who shot himself in the leg, but I'm going to pick the dumbass who decided to leave her cell phone at the teller's window. Yeah.
That's my favorite too. It just feels very Florida, like a very Florida thing to do. Leave your cell phone there. Albert, what is your favorite, please?
Probably the emotional support snake. It was a truly a wild idea to just leave it in your carry-on as it's going through the belt.
And you get credit for it being a reptile-related story, so you may be right. There are no right answers.
Yeah.
But in the chat, the PP bite gets a little love, and the cell phone is the best. Yeah. Cell phone for sure. A lot of the emotional support snake, cell phone in the bank, classic. Emotional support snake, a lot of love for the emotional support snake. Snow. All right. Well, everyone, you can vote on YouTube. Albert's going to put up a handful of them, and you can vote for your favorite among that handful. The snake, I'm sure, will be in it. Which ones will be in there?
The snake is in the lead right now. I just posted it, so
okay.
We'll review that before the next guest.
But it's snake, cell phone, and what else?
Snakes, the guy who shot himself, the cell phone, and the bondage story.
Okay, cool. All right.
Julie says it's a good punk band named Emotional Support Snake.
Yeah, that's not bad. Not bad. So we are, if you're just joining us, this is our, I'm in a temp area. So nice of these people to let me camp out here in their basement, essentially, area. But of course, it's a studio that they've set up in their basement. It's, it's quite lavish. But anyway, that's why this shot looks a little bit different, but the show is the same show as we normally do on a Friday, which means Michael Shure and Jim Avila will weigh in on everything going on. I mean, special counsels, any number of issues related to politics, George Santos, we may touch on it, etc. But Kim, do you want to give us a minute or two of news, and then we'll get to those guys?
If you want me to, otherwise you can just
what time is it, Albert? It's 11:05.
It's 11:05. Would you like to go straight to the fellas?
I think I have. Do you mind? I think I will.
That's fine.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I don't want them to wait. They're so lovely, and I also feel as though there is so much that we have to talk about. So
I love those too. Let's get them on.
All right, smash
the Mark Thompson Show.
Please welcome two gentlemen to this program who are so kind to join us on Fridays. This guy has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He's Michael Shure, everybody. And yes, Michael Shure is there. And then this gentleman is the former senior correspondent for ABC News, longtime White House correspondent as well. Now he can let it fly as a private citizen. He's Jim Avila, everybody. Come on. There you go. Jim, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Mark.
Yeah. So the thing that sees the headlines, and I can ask you both to put this in some kind of context. This week, I thought one of the things that sees the headlines was this revelation that Joe Biden had classified documents in his possession in these various places. First, it was discovered in the office, then it's discovered in his garage. I mean, and then there's another room off the garage, etc. How big a deal is this? And can you put this in some sort of context? There is this special counsel that's been appointed as a result of these revelations. Jim, please, how important?
Well, I mean, I think you have to look at this on two levels. Is it comparable to what Donald Trump is accused of doing? No. Does it look bad? It looks terrible. And practically, it takes some heat off Donald Trump, because now his attorneys can, both in court and in the public opinion court, can say, come on, everybody does it. Biden, who's supposed to be this Mr. Clean, he did it. Donald Trump's no worse than anybody else. It's more of this whataboutism that the Republicans are so good at. And unfortunately, Biden has fallen right into the trap. The amount of material that he has had stocked away in his garage in Wilmington and again in Washington, D.C. in an office is minuscule compared to what Trump had. Secondly, the Justice Department didn't have to go subpoena them. They didn't have to go raid his office or his house. Joe Biden gave those up voluntarily. And perhaps what is fitting into the Republican spin machine is that they didn't report it right away. They reported it to the government right away. They didn't report it publicly right away. So right after they found the stuff in Washington, D.C., within days, they reported it to the National Archives, which they're supposed to do. But that was also a few days before the midterm elections, and they didn't make it public, and therefore that looks bad that they were trying to hide something. So it's a negative. It's not good, and many people are not going to look at it in a rational fashion. They're going to look at it as whataboutism.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree with Jim, and I would just add that the court of public opinion is the one that matters most. It's not the court of law, because the court of law is still going to go after Donald Trump's attorneys, even for defying the subpoena, for hiding it. There was also a lot of the records that were returned to the National Archives by the Trump people were mutilated. Some are still missing and unaccounted for. There are gaps there. So in terms of levels of egregiousness, it's clear that the two are incomparable, even the way it was handled. Like Jim said, the very same day that these were found at the Washington office, they contacted the National Archives that day and said that they were there. Did they come public with it? No, they didn't. And look, I would probably have advised them to not come public with it at that time as well. As long as they were going through the proper protocol, this would come out, and it did. But I also think that, it does sort of limit the impact of what Donald Trump did with his records at Mar-a-Lago, that it becomes less about having the classified documents and more about fighting to keep people there. It's a little bit, Nixonian in that, in that it was about, the cover up more than it was about the crime. And I think that the other part of it that will play is that, somebody's going to come out and say, well, the National Archives has to do a better job as White Houses are winding down in getting in there and making sure that they get all of this material. So I think a little of that blame is going to go to the National Archives, probably from the right, because they're the ones that are probably most hurt by this. It's not something that Joe Biden needed right now. I don't see how it's going to have an enduring effect on President Biden.
It's asked in the chat, and I think it's a reasonable point, and it's essentially the point that Michael Shure is making here. The broader point, and I pointed this out yesterday too, sort of, or asked the question, what the hell's going on with classified documents in this country? I mean, we're not aware of where they are. They show up, it seems, everywhere. I mean, I don't feel so bad about how disorganized I am now. I mean, it's crazy. Or it seems as though there is a function of disorganization at the highest levels of our government. And so it was asked in the chat, what are these documents? They can't be that important if literally no one knows where they are and just discovers that they are in the custody of Joe Biden or Joe Biden's people in the case of the most recent revelations. Or now in the case of Trump, I guess he walked away with so many. They were aware that they were after these documents. But even in the case of Trump, there's some specifics as to what documents might still be outstanding that they aren't really sure about.
There are clearly things that are still missing. The National Archive says that there are records that are missing still from the Trump White House, and those blanks have yet to be filled in. And it's a good point that the person who either texted or I'll say they faxed, Mark. I'm going to go with fax in their question and their point is that what is going on here? Well, I mean, there's a lot of mundane classified information that is pertinent at one moment that loses its interest over time as well. And then there's some that are obviously quite important and quite sensitive. And I think that's why the National Archives treats every single piece as important as the next, because it's not up to them to divulge or to discern which is. And both the president and the vice president, and I learned this week, have the power to declassify a document. I didn't know that the vice president could do that as well. So there is that sort of gray area of Donald Trump saying that he declassified all of that. Well, we know that that's not the fact anymore. But again, yes, there has to be a new protocol for how they deal with this. And I think the National Archives is probably going to get into that right away if they haven't already.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems was that in the Trump instance, again, another difference is that they knew stuff was missing because there were important documents they couldn't find, like the personal letter from the North Korean chairman to President Trump. It was missing. That was something very important and something that belonged in history, and also, could be national security. What did he say? How was he flattering the president? Those type of things. In the Biden instance, nobody knew anything was missing because, as far as we know, there was nothing really important that was outstanding that came to the National Archives' attention. Now, who is overseeing this? I don't know how the process works, and that's one of the things that I think a legitimate House inquiry would be, as to how they classify these things, how they move them when one president leaves office and the next one comes in. Who's overseeing that move? I mean, in the Trump instance, it was just guys with boxes carrying him down in a truck down to Mar-a-Lago. They were found, the ones that were found for Biden, at least in the museum or the think tank where he was having them, were obviously being stored there by somebody because they thought they were going to be pertinent to some history or some kind of writing of a memoir. The same thing with questions were asked about Obama because he had a bunch of them moved to Chicago, but that was under the supervision of the National Archives, so there was no issue. So there has to be a delineation here about what's going on with the National Archives and who oversees this movement, because some of those are very important. Some of them have the names of our assets, names of spies, names of people that we've turned in very dangerous countries, and you don't want those out in somebody's closet. Others, as Michael points out, are not that important and should probably have been declassified.
It's an interesting comment from John Snyder. I want to know this. Why are people still using paper? Can't we have all this stuff digital and then secure it? Years from now, people will be saying old people doing old people things. I mean,
the archives are actually digitizing, and it goes to the point where we used to build these presidential libraries that they're museums, but they're also built to house all of the records by the National Archives, to house the records of that particular administration. Well, now people are saying, well, why do we need to spend all this money, public money, on housing these records when, in fact, researchers, historians, fact checkers can use these things digitally, even if it has to be on site under the supervision, but you don't need all the space and all. So John makes a good point. But for the moment, these papers do exist, and even once digitized, it's unclear what happens to them. Where should they be stored? Because if digitization fails in some way, at least you have the actual article in cases where that is necessary for history.
Yeah, and as one of your listeners just pointed out, Mark, putting things on digital doesn't mean it's secure either. I mean, it's probably maybe less secure if it gets out in that world where, who knows? I mean, your bank statements aren't secure anymore. So, that it doesn't necessarily make that a digital thing is going to be much more secure.
And that's the argument the archives are making too.
When I read the Michael Lewis book, The Fifth Risk, and he talked at the beginning of the book about the transition from the Obama administration to the Trump administration, and I learned a lot about the transition process, where I thought I'd known a lot, but there was even greater detail that was filled in by the Lewis book. But there's always an incident that brings something else to the center of attention. In this case, it's this document thing. I didn't know this. Like, I didn't know what Michael had pointed out earlier, that the vice president has the power to declassify, or that even these documents would be treated with anything but the utmost care and with the greatest surveillance. And clearly that's not the case. As Jim says, you know, the move is kind of just like you and I might move from apartment to apartment. I mean, it's not supervised in any kind of, it would seem, coherent fashion. And it allows for the sequestering of these documents, or the secreting of these documents. And I'm glad we made the point on this. What's different is that there is an active obfuscation on the part of the Trump team to keep documents, keep them away from the archives, and prevent this process from going on. So that, I mean, right away, it seemed like
one of the most serious potential charges is obstruction of justice, and that's only been talked about with Trump. There's no indication that there's any obstruction of justice in the Biden camp as of now. There really is no equivalency, and it's really a shame that somebody, probably not the president, but somebody on his staff, was this sloppy and didn't take care of these things, because now it has the potential of making things easier for Donald Trump in court. I think I disagree with Michael a little bit on this. I think that, yes, the court case is more serious for Donald Trump, and he still has a problem with that. But a jury going in and sitting in the courtroom, all the defense has to say is, well, let's look at seeing what other presidents have done. Well, President Biden had the same problem or similar problem, and therefore you really can't read President Trump's mind, can you? So let's let him off. I think it poses a real problem in a jury trial.
I do, but I don't think they're going to go out. Maybe I wasn't clear enough. I don't think that's what they're going to be going after. I think they really want to go after his legal team, the Trump legal team, for fighting the subpoena. And it's no moment how many presidents did whatever they did in a case like that. It's the fact that these lawyers defied the court, they defied the Congress, and they didn't provide what needed to be provided. Also,
Martha Stewart went to jail. She lied to the FBI.
Right.
Got to give Trump credit for always being able to find apparently an endless number of attorneys who are ready to lie and break the law on his behalf. I think it's pretty amazing. Yeah. I mean, even the mob runs out of lawyers, but not Donald Trump. It's great. Right. I want to ask you about the business of government now, with the change in leadership and with when we spoke last time, there was still the speakership very much in doubt. Now, with that resolved, I'm wondering about the business of government, the agenda of the new Congress. Obviously, legislation is pretty much going to run aground because of a divided Congress. But can you speak to where we are on that? Start with you, Michael.
I think that the Republicans have a decision to make, and it's fairly clear what that decision is as to whether or not they think the brand should be vengeance and the brand should be sort of treating just because they were treated a certain way, and many feel justifiably that they need to go and turn around and do that. You already hear people saying that Ilhan Omar, the representative from Minnesota, that Eric Swalwell, representative from California, and will not be seated among others on committees. Adam Schiff as well, who was the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. So by doing that, they're just sort of playing that same kind of a game. There were reasons why the last speaker, went after some of those people not to be on committees. And I think when you see them behaving that way, also, the first thing that they do is they bring up abortion. And when you're bringing up abortion early, to me, it makes no sense. I think that the Republican majority in the House would be a lot bigger, and I don't know that they would have one in the Senate were it not for the Dobbs decision. But they are still going into full bore into the abortion issue, which delights Democrats here. But that seems to be what they're going to do. And Hunter Biden and investigations and putting conservatives on the Rules Committee that decide which legislation goes to the floor. You can see them putting their, look, they have the right to, they're in the majority, but I don't know that the playbook that Kevin McCarthy is using is the one that if I were the Republican leader right now, I would use.
Jim?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with the Republican Party. They have no plans. They have no legislation. Jim Jordan has been in Congress for years and has never proposed one piece of legislation in the Congress. He is a rabble rouser, and that's all he's going to do is cause a lot of commotion, a lot of chaos. And is that the Republican brand? It appears to be. It appears that chaos is the Republican brand. We're going to see right away a problem with the debt ceiling, a problem with government shutdown. The government shutdown means that thousands of people are going to be not paid and not go to work. Parks will be closed again. The army, the military will not be paid. Those type of things are very serious, and that's what they're going to be known for. That's what they're going to be branded for. I think it's a total disaster and a total recipe for losing in 2024. And I think it's a real mistake for them to. And when you say equivalency of going after those Congress people that they're talking about going after, or calling in the head of Homeland Security or Dr. Fauci, there were not investigations of that nature by the Democrats. The investigation by the Democrats was in the January 6th insurrection. That's way up here. What they're talking about is political and only down here, and is really it makes no sense politically. And I think it's going to damage the country and damage, if they have any brand left, it's going to damage their brand.
I wonder about the degree to which this is sort of the pact with the devil that we saw McCarthy have to make, the degree to which the party is now increasingly, I would say, held hostage, but maybe it's now defined by something different, the GOP. I mean, I get the lower taxes and personal freedoms, but I'm sorry, go ahead. But then
I think you're going to take a sympathetic look at it. You would say that's their problem, and they have to figure that out. And they have a little time to do that, and they have the leadership, and they now have a window in which to do it. We just don't, as Jim outlined, we don't have any indication that they're going to do that. And until you have that, I can't see how this is a good plan for them. But I've been wrong about them many times before. I mean, as recently as probably yesterday. And so they do figure a way out to make things work politically when you can't understand why they're doing that. But I think that act is going to grow old. And I don't think that Kevin McCarthy has a strong enough hold on his caucus to even have that be something that you can, bet on.
Well, their successes have been limited. Their successes have been in packing the courts. That was the number one thing they did. And number two, they gerrymandered states across the country so that they still have some representation, because otherwise they would have been blown out of the water completely. They have about a 35% popularity among.
I totally agree. And I'm just saying their political success allows them to do that, right? And keeping their natural coalitions together, they're Christian conservatives, so they can pack the courts. People who held their noses when Donald Trump was an option in the primary, who came out in full force, got their 3 Supreme Court justices in a packed court. So you're right. I totally agree with you. I'm just saying that those political successes matter because they endure.
And what, as to Mark's point, if you understand the quote unquote, your dad's Republican Party, lower taxes, less restrictions, regulations, those type of things. Okay, where's that plan? I haven't seen a tax plan yet. I haven't seen, there's no talk about doing that. What they've done is, in fact, which is pretty kind of counterproductive, they've decided not to fund the IRS to its maximum, so that we're collecting even less taxes from these huge companies and from these millionaires and billionaires who are not paying any taxes. What they're doing, I really do not understand how they ever expect to elect a president again if they keep doing this.
Yeah. Well, and I think you touch on in this conversation, Michael Shure, we're finishing up with Michael and Jim, the things, and I'm glad you mentioned the court of public opinion, because the court of public opinion matters when it comes to voting. Presuming the votes have legitimacy to them, that we can get the voting system. I think the election system in America is threatened by a lot of this voter intimidation, and there's all sorts of voter suppression going on, in my view, and that for another time. But that the idea that somehow the overturning of Roe and then bringing it up again, as you suggested in this conversation, it keeps it in the public consciousness. I mean, it's a big thing, and for a party that celebrates personal freedom, that's a big freedom that they have taken away, and a big piece of personal privacy they've taken away from a woman. So,
and it hurt them in November. So.
Yes, and it could contaminate their chances again moving forward.
Mark, before we go, I didn't get the email. What's next week's uniform?
I got. By the way,
you got to get one of these.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
That is very strong.
I didn't know we could have writing. I didn't know we could have writing.
I have 400 of these, so I'd be happy to send you a couple hundred.
Okay.
Michael is a big Niners fan, Jim Avila, as you're probably aware. I mean, he's a huge Niners fan. He's flown across the country to see the Niners play. Yeah. So this shouldn't be difficult to play the Seahawks. Just give us 30 seconds on that, if you would, please, Michael.
According to my son, who is also an enormous Niners fan, and great thanks to his father, they will win by at least 15 tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's going to happen. I think they're going to control the game. I don't think that the Seattle offense has a way to deal with the 49ers defense. And,
when do you think, Michael, that, if I can just add on to that, when do you think the lack of a original first-string quarterback, or at least a second-string quarterback, is going to kick in? I don't think it will at Seattle, but I worry about them down the line.
Yeah, I think when they face a real defense, I mean, they're all real defenses, the NFL, but when they face the Eagles defense, for example, it's going to be more difficult for Brock Purdy. But, Kyle Shanahan has a plug-and-play offense, right? I mean, you can put anybody in, and they seem to do well, running backs especially. So, you don't have to be brilliant to hand the ball off. And
those running backs he has are incredible.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, that was good.
But I would also say that, look, this kid, Brock Purdy, he's come up in some tough situations, even that first game in which he played on 3rd and long, where you just couldn't hand the ball to Debo, or you just couldn't get the ball to McCaffrey. You had to make a tough pass. He does make them. He is wasn't the star of the show. He was the understudy. I get it. But he has really, sung the big songs in the show, to extend the parallel,
right,
in as good thank you.
Well,
in as strong a fashion as the starters.
Yeah, and in Niner world, the big question is, what if they make the Super Bowl or the championship game, and what if Jimmy's ready to play? What do you do? So let's see.
Jimmy.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, we're out of time.
Just because he's very good looking.
Okay.
Right. Isn't that what we were talking about?
I want to lose with the most handsome guy at the helm.
Right.
All right, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Michael Shure, Jim Avila, love talking to you every Friday. Go Niners. Thanks, guys. All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, so long. Jim Avila, Michael Shure, great stuff. Now, Albert, hit your little organ or whatever you have.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you. Yeah, I know it did sound weird. A quick check-in with Kim, and then we will be back. Michael Snyder will join us, and he has a rundown on any number of movies. We'll get to that. It's award season 2. I will give you 45 seconds of my impression so far of the Golden Globes, of the award season, that it looks, if it's anything like the Golden Globes, it'll be interminable. It will never end. My God, that award show was absolutely awful. I mean, just for the length of time everybody took at the podium. So smash the like button like a boss. I'll tell you the other thing I really want to do.
With your iron rod.
I want to acknowledge so many of you who've stepped up and supported us today with super stickers, super chats. We love all of you, and we'll do that right after Kim's news. Thanks for being here. It's our Big Friday show from an undisclosed location. How exciting. Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, Kim, I think you might be muted.
Not going to get very far doing the news
There
with the
you
mute
go.
button on.
Yeah.
There we go.
And I was really ready to jump in on that big brass note. This is what happens.
best
On the Mark
plan.
I can hit it,
Thompson
I can
Show.
hit it one more time. Let's run that back.
Okay, yeah. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Tim McAllister, and this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. And the cleanup continues here in California. The state bracing for more storms, though. California used a brief break from all this severe weather we're having that has hit since the start of the year to remove fallen trees, fix down power lines, and prepare sandbags for the next wave of storms. At least 19 people have died in storm-related incidents since the start of this recent weather. We have video. This is from John Zucchelli with NBC Bay Area. Check this out. It's I don't know if it's gonna mute me or not. This is from the Salinas River. Can you guys hear me, Albert?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay,
Oh my
so
goodness, that's
this is the
crazy.
Salinas River. Yeah, this is really horrible. The water levels causing severe flooding in the Salinas Valley, the storm causing the Salinas River to overflow its banks and cause some levee breaks along the river, flooding farmland in the area. Matter of fact, water levels of rivers, lakes, and creeks still an issue. That Salinas River could cut everybody off in the on the Monterey Peninsula there, and they could become cut off from services and stranded, really. The National Weather Service says at least 2 more storms are set to slam California starting today and through the weekend as well. Former President Trump's efforts to dismiss a defamation lawsuit, been rejected by a federal judge. The lawsuit filed by writer E. Jean Carroll accusing Trump of defamation for denying raping her in the 90s. The judge said Trump's argument for dismissal is without merit. Trump's argument that Carroll's sexual assault claim under New York's Adult Survivors Act should also be dismissed was rejected as well. Carroll has accused Trump of raping her in a department store in either 1995 or 96, which Trump has denied at least twice. Yes, unfortunately, unfortunate story, but we have some more information now about a Virginia student, a 6-year-old student, what may have had a weapon hours before a teacher was shot. Apparently, an administrator knew the child had a weapon. That, according to the Newport News public school superintendent, who revealed new details about the shooting during a virtual town hall with parents. The forum was just for parents, but a link to the meeting was shared with a local TV news outlet. The superintendent said nothing was found when the student's backpack was searched 2.5 hours before the shooting happened. But apparently, an administrator may have known that this 6-year-old child had a weapon hours before the teacher was shot. A search was done and nothing found. Let's go to something a little bit more hopeful for the world. We're not going to win, but we could. Maybe Friday the 13th, but lottery players still hoping to beat the odds in tonight's $1.3 billion Mega Millions drawing. Drawing is the second largest jackpot in Mega Millions history. Meantime, the Powerball is now at $404 million. The next drawing in that game will be on Saturday night. And let's go now to the set of Rust, where a district attorney in New Mexico was weighing possible criminal charges in the accidental shooting on that movie set. Alec Baldwin struck and killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins with an antique revolver during a dress rehearsal for the movie in 2021. Well, now the Santa Fe district attorney will announce sometime this month whether her office will press criminal charges against anyone involved in what happened. Oh no, this little guy is missing, or one like him. Dallas Zoo closed today because of a missing leopard. Zoo officials issued a code blue after a clouded leopard wasn't seen in its habitat when the staff arrived this morning. The code is for a non-dangerous animal that is out of its enclosure. The zoo says it believes the leopard is still on the ground and their focus is on locating the animal. So yeah, they closed the Dallas Zoo. Non-dangerous animal? I don't know. But hopefully that guy is still on the grounds of the zoo, captured and dealt with safely and humanely. This report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, it's 888-TAX-DEAL. It's MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What up, everybody? It is great to have you in the mix. What up, what up, what up? This is our temporary location just for today because of the, because of the fact that the power went off at my house. It didn't go off. They had a planned power outage. If you missed it, I'll just give it to you in 15 seconds or less. They told us it was going to be Wednesday. Kim stepped up, hosted the show Wednesday, waiting. They come to the door and said, no, now we're going to do it Friday because of the weather. So here it is Friday. They did do it. And so there is no power at my home. So I'm here at my friends' homes, and they've been at home, and they've been so nice to let me set up camp here. So I want to do a shout out or two or three. So can we do that, Albert? Stan Pollock, CPA, $20. Thanks for being here. I really enjoyed listening to you. Thank you,
Stan.
Yeah. It's applause for everybody today. All of our, I think, of our other drops are not in play. But thank you, Stan. Gail Guthrie. Here's to staying alive in 2023. People in my age group are dropping like flies.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. I'm laughing because it's true. I guess I'd be crying if I weren't laughing. Thank you, my darling. Thank you for the 1999. Appreciate that. Beth Farmer for 1999. Come up. Throwing up a plea to the rain gods. Please give us a few days between rainstorms. Yeah, really. Would you? Terrific. Thank you for that. That really, really cool. Andreas!
Oh, Andreas.
Andreas is one of the patron saints of this show.
He deserves a. I'm not going to cry.
Supporting for Nikki's daughter. Yeah, Nikki's daughter's having a tough time right now, and Nikki's dealing with it. So, and of course, enjoying this beautiful rainy day, thinking I'm back in school. Another 20 from Andreas. Come on, Andreas.
Thank you.
You're the best, my friend. Thank you so very much, Andreas. Really so generous. Joe Fong with 1999. What up with the super sticker, Joe Fong?
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Shout out. Appreciate you so much, Joe. Thank you. Super stickers, super chats. That's how you support us here on YouTube. Luis. Should have kept the MT tarp. Yeah, for the remote shows. You're right. Should have kept the MT tarp, aka banner, for remote shows like today. You're right. I could have hung the banner there. I'm sure that wouldn't have bothered them at all.
No.
Yeah. My step and repeat people are going to arrive at your house about an hour before we go on. Don't mind them. Joe Fong, is that a second super sticker, Albert?
Looks like it.
Wow, Joe Fong.
No, that was a mistake.
On.
That was a mistake. Sorry.
I'm still saying, come on, Joe Fong. Right on. Really, really cool. Walter for $4.99. Aloha, Walter. What
Aloha
up?
Friday.
Thank you for the support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Big shout out. Very, very cool. Yoga for Life. A downward dog, you baby. $4.99. Love
What?
it. Thank you, Yoga for Life. I know. Sounded a little creepier than I wanted it to. Thank you, Yoga for Life. Andreas, $20 for for the basement.
That's a pretty nice basement, though.
Yeah, it's pretty. Andreas, this basement, I'm in a studio now. Let me show you this. Let's see if I can do this. Hang on a second. Should I try this, Kim? I don't know.
Yeah.
So this is their studio.
See, there's a real studio in there.
There's a full studio in there. There's a full studio. And then across the hall, there is
You can take us to the movie theater?
No, I can't. I don't feel comfortable doing that. But I just found it because I was looking for the bathroom.
Opening doors.
You missed it.
Yeah.
There's a movie theater across the street, across the hall. So thank you. So as basements go, it's pretty nice. Very cool studio, says Sayo. Trevor in Concord. Trevor, 20. Here's 2023. Here's 20 for everyone on the show, and 23 cents for a piece of duct tape to cover the blue light on Kim's mic.
What?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so is it annoying
What
to
is the
you?
story on that? Yeah.
This is my microphone, and it in the on position, it has this little blue light. You guys don't like the blue light? I thought it was kind of cool looking. My husband has told me it's so bright that it's distracting. So sometimes I'll try to turn it, but maybe I should get a little piece of duct tape to put over
Trevor in Concord has
He
pledged
doesn't like-
23 cents to get you that duct tape to do it.
Okay,
So I would
Trevor.
say, yeah.
So noted. I'll cover up my blue light. All right, or
Yeah.
at least put
So
the
no
mic
more blue
sleeve
light.
down.
Thank you, Trevor in Concord. You
look,
see, it is
I
a
put the mic
community
sleeve
that builds
down.
this show.
So okay,
Yeah.
I hear you. Message received.
Okay. Karen Jennings for $19.99 super sticker. What up, Karen? Thank you so much, Karen Jennings.
Really nice.
Very cool on a Friday. Love getting your support. $19.99. Thank you so much. It does. Hey, we're crowdfunded. This matters every bit. Harry Magnan for your happy hour, Kim Teeny.
Oh,
yeah, you should have a Kim Teeny. There's a Mark Teeny. Why shouldn't there be a Kim Teeny?
That's right.
At the Red Jack. Yeah.
Mhm.
$10. Thank you, Harry. As I was saying, every bit helps. I mean, we have big bills to pay every month, and so we're crowdfunded. Without your support, we go away, and with your support, this community continues, and we're looking forward to that. So thank you all very much. Now, this guy writes a column in the Marina Times. He joins us on Friday. His column is about a lot of things, but he's the regular movie and music critic when it comes to culture. There is no other than this guy. He comes and goes on a rainbow. And I knew, took the chance when I said it, that it may not happen. But Michael Snyder, everybody.
Hey,
Michael, I
wow.
apologize that your rainbow is not happening.
It's okay. It's Friday the 13th. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? I mean, I'm of the opinion expressed by the blues legend Albert King in his immortal song "Born Under a Bad Sign." If it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck at all. And
I love it.
Speaking of bad luck,
bad luck,
a bomb cyclone is coming, yet another. And I fear this is going to be a brutal squall. I expect gusts galore, so grab your galoshes, especially if you're going to Levi Stadium tomorrow at 1 p.m. Big Niners game. I'm excited for my team. I'm hoping for the best.
I think we discussed a few minutes ago the fact that they shouldn't have an issue with the Seahawks, but you never know. That's why they play the games, right?
Hey, slippery ball is slippery, right? Am I right?
Yeah. And a couple of ill-timed turnovers. You're right, and you can end up on the wrong end of the outcome. That would be a heartbreak. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, but before we get to the regular part of our show, full disclosure: I met my true love in the interactive wing of the Museum of Sex.
Oh.
That's a little fabulous.
The interactive wing? Wait, what?
That was a callback to the Museum of Sex story? Wow.
Yeah, right. The interactive
with your
wing.
Iron rod.
That's not a museum of sex, but more on that for another time. Yeah, I think you walked into the wrong house.
Yeah, maybe that was definitely a possibility. Okay, yeah, a Man Called Otto, the Tom Hanks remake of the Swedish dramedy A Man Called Ove, is one of the two movies opening wide this weekend. And since I already covered it 2 weeks ago for its Oscar consideration run in New York and LA, I feel like I should move on to the one true first run feature premiering across this great land of ours, Plane, as in airplane, but decidedly not the Leslie Nielsen comedy. I love that movie, by the way. But this is a different beast entirely. As long as Ireland's Liam Neeson is getting a bit long in the tooth for the B+ and lower action movies that have been his bread and butter for quite a few years now, at least we have the rough and ready and generally amiable Scottish actor Gerard Butler of 300, Greenland, and the Fallen series. London Has Fallen, Olympus Has Fallen, Angel Has Fallen. And now Butler is starring in Plane, which, if true to Butler's filmography, might be fallen at some point in the movie. I'm just saying the plane may go down. Anyway, it's one of those contrived thrillers that generally get dumped in the post-winter holiday dead zone that I have spoken of before. If a movie is released in January, it's either something studios don't think will do very well at more competitive times in the year, or it's part of the post-holiday free-for-all with foreign and indie awards season fodder opening wide. All that aside, get ready. Plane is not terrible. In fact, it was pretty darn fun to watch.
Wow. I did not expect this review.
It has an adherence to formula. There are those contrivances. And then you got the remarkable durability of Butler's character. You know how the heroes in these things get punched and kicked and shot at, and they keep plowing forward. So, yeah, that's the situation here. He plays a veteran pilot and widowed single dad who wants to spend New Year's Eve with his daughter on a tropical island. That sounds a little hinky, but he has to pilot one last flight from Singapore to Tokyo before he can party. Did I mention that the flight is a go despite threatening storms developing on the route? And did I mention that an armed marshal on the flight with a prisoner is escorting this escaped and recaptured felon back to the Who's Gal, the Pokey, you know, the Gray Bar Hotel. It's what could possibly go wrong squared. Anyway, I have no desire.
That's a hell of a flight. That's a hell of a flight that people end up on. That particular flight.
Exactly. Yeah. I have no desire to spoil let's call them the populist pleasures of the movie, other than to say that it more than meets my low expectations, while occasionally going to surprising and sometimes ludicrous, but generally entertaining places. Plane was tightly directed with a kind of offhand swagger by Jean-Francois Richet, and everybody in the supporting cast pulls their weight, especially Mike Coulter, a heroic star of the TV shows Luke Cage and Evil, here playing the prisoner, and most importantly, Butler, who comes off as the ideal guy you'd want to join for a beer at the sports bar, is solid as a rock throughout. It's plain fun. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's in theaters. Shockingly, I enjoyed my time on the plane.
That is shocking. I did not. I thought that you were going to eviscerate this film, but you did not. I will mention, because it was asked, you mentioned Otto at the beginning. Now it's in wide release. Michael reviewed it last week or a couple of weeks ago. Just a quick summary, because Michael always think I never listen to what he says. But as I recall, you liked this original Swedish movie. You were not crazy about this Tom Hanks film.
It seemed like a needless remake, except people don't want to read subtitles. The original movie is something worth seeking out. A Man Called Otto, if you haven't seen the original movie, it's not bad. And Tom Hanks is kind of good playing up against type as a grumpy bastard who hates all of his neighbors. But, you know, A Man Called Ove is so wonderful. The original is something worth digging up and watching.
Okay. What's next, Michael?
Well, you know what? We don't have any other major new releases this weekend. And I thought I would kind of go back and cover a couple things, 2-3 things that I thought were really terrific that I didn't ever cover here on the Mark Thompson Show over the past number of months. I finally caught up to a movie that is showing up on quite a few best of 2022 lists. And now that I've seen, here comes the title, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, I understand the praise. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is being touted as an animated movie, and it is in large part, but it's animated characters, Marcel, a cute little talking snail, and his fellow shelled brethren, seamlessly move around in the real world of documentary filmmaker Dean, who is renting the LA bed and breakfast where man meets shell. But circumstances have separated Marcel and his beloved grandmother, Snail Connie, from the rest of their family, and Marcel isn't shy about telling their new human friend, Dean, about the plight. So the amazed Dean, who, again, is a documentary filmmaker, proceeds to shoot a film with Marcel and Connie, these little talking snails, then posts the short online, generating a groundswell of fans for Marcel, and even getting the attention of a legendary TV news program. So this gentle and inventive movie, directed and co-written by Dean Fleischer Camp, who also plays Dean the documentarian, has a lot to say about love, loss, grief, and wonder. And Marcel, who is delicately and adorably voiced by ex-SNL cast member Jenny Slate, gives it a soulful center. Honor should also go out to the other significant voice actor in the movie, the always exquisite Isabella Rossellini. She gives Grandma Connie such an aura of warmth and good sense that it's evident why Marcel treasures her. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is a special movie for all ages, and it's streaming on various platforms where movies can be found.
Wow, look at you. That's great. And that's stop motion, is that?
The animated elements are stop motion, but they're seamlessly integrated into the live action footage, which features the director, co-author of the screenplay, playing the documentarian. And there's a cameo by a pretty famous American newscaster and presenter as well. I don't want to get into that, but it's very, very sweet. You know, we don't have a lot of time on the Mark Thompson Show to cover everything that I see and want to extol. And I wanted to go back a number of months to a movie called The Sea Beast. As long as we were talking about the animated joys of Marcel, I was really pleased to see The Sea Beast, which is available on Netflix. And it wasn't beastly at all. Surprisingly heartfelt, beautifully rendered seafaring adventure that children should love and us olds will enjoy for its visual splendor and its implied plea for tolerance and compromise, which is, of course, a great lesson for the kids to learn. So here's the setting. During a 16th century looking time when massive creatures roamed the ocean and were hunted by independent seafaring men and women on sailing ships, a plucky young orphan decides, yo ho ho, it's a sailor's life for her. So the girl, Maisie, stows away on a fabled ship captained by a man seeking vengeance on the most feared giant beastie in this war between humans and seagoing leviathans. I know, it's like his dick is a little Moby. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to make it a little off color there. I apologize. Captain Crow and his crew are committed to defending their foppish king and smug queen and home country, although a movement is afoot to decommission the independent hunters and empower the Royal Navy to destroy all monsters instead. Captain Crow's number 2 is a square-jawed, good-natured swashbuckler named Jacob, and he is in line to take over the ship after the captain kills the sea beast of the title and proves to the royals that the hunters are still needed as the conflict wears on. Yeah, there are shades of Robert Louis Stevenson, Herman Melville, of course, and How to Train Your Dragon, but so be it. The Sea Beast is gorgeous to look at with memorable and appealing character designs, even if the beast recalls a certain trainable dragon. There's fluid movement, killer action, an extremely realistic, meticulously detailed computer animated environment, and the voice work, including Carl Urban as Jacob, Jared Harris as Captain Crow, Zaris Angel Hator as Maisie. It's shipshape. With the Sea Beast, director-screenwriter Chris Williams, whose previous directorial effort was the totally cool Big Hero 6 for Disney, confirms that he knows how to make a truly sea-worthy family entertainment. And yes, that's spelled S-E-E. The Sea Beast is on Netflix. I was enchanted. It's in my top 5 animated films of the year, and it just doesn't get enough love.
Wow. I'm so really 2 of them, Marcel, the Shell with Shoes On, and the Sea Beast are both films that I'm glad you doubled back for them. And they're both, I think, watchable on Netflix. Is that what you said?
No, one is on, Marcel is on a variety of different video on demand platforms and streaming platforms. And the Sea Beast is on Netflix. And you really can't go wrong with either of them. It's funny, just as a kind of postscript to discussing animated films we missed, there's a movie called Apollo 10.5, A Space-Age Childhood, done by the great director Richard Linklater, the guy who did Boyhood and Dazed and Confused. And it's all about a kid growing up in Houston, Texas in the 60s, whose dad works at NASA. And it basically looks at the 60s in that era and the space race from the point of view of this kid. And it's partly it's a coming of age movie, it's social commentary, and it is a wonderful look at the era, again, through a young person's eyes. And I know it's probably largely biographical for Richard Linklater, and it's so creatively animated. And it also is available, if I'm not mistaken, on Netflix. I know you can find it out there. High marks to Apollo 10.5, A Space-Age Childhood. Very interesting and creative with a little of that motion capture or rotoscoping, the way Linklater did other movies in his canon in the past. Terrific movie. So it's 3 good animated films.
That's really terrific. Thank you, Michael Snyder. I will mention that the Culture Blaster doesn't typically, I don't think, in my recollection, review award shows. So a couple people asked, what did he think of the Golden Globes? I mean, you might have thoughts about, what films were worthy of awards or what films, fall into certain categories as being better than others. But I think the idea, you don't watch the award shows, I presume. They're just, they're interminable.
I grudgingly take a look here and there. I always try to watch the monologues, and I do pay attention to who wins, even though I think award shows in the arts are bunk and hokum.
Of course they are.
And I did see the two guys from Yellowstone come out and twice mispronounce the name of one of the nominees. And I found that Amanda Seyfried. Let's hear it for Amanda Seyfried. Did they not give them a pronunciation guide to say Seyfried? Seyfried. Come on, everybody.
Well, here's the reason that's particularly funny to me, as you sort of have implied. You know what you're there to do. You know the people in the category. You know the nominees. You have the names days ahead of time. Just get clear on how to say it. How lazy and self-indulgent are you to show up and not even bother to ask or get down the pronunciation of one of the nominees that you're there to announce? It's absurd.
It's funny, and on the flip side of the coin, the noted San Francisco, now Palm Springs entrepreneur Mark Eustace posted something on Facebook. Was it like, these people aren't drunk enough? Where was the old drunken revel that was the Golden Globes? And I thought to myself, come on, that Jennifer Coolidge had a flask on her. She had one in her back pocket or her purse.
Look. My problem with the Golden Globes was the length of time that the presenters and particularly the winners took. The presenters, you can kind of, as a producer, you understand they're going to take this much time. This is their bit, whatever it is. But I think there comes a point when you win that there's a selfishness associated with going on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes in some case. I mean, it just is, and it's tough to be a viewer. I don't know. I wasn't a fan, but look, I like the reality of award shows because sometimes you see people in these authentic ways and they do things that are authentic. I guess the extreme awful example is Chris Rock and what happened to him from Will Smith. But short of that, there's still a lot of other authentic moments. But in general, it's absurd. Of course, Michael's right. You cannot compare art. You cannot compare these. The only way to compare would be the same script, same film, same actors directed by a different person. If you want to pick best director, same cast, same film produced by a different producer. You get my point. It's just apples and oranges.
Yeah, it's always been a sticking point for me. I don't know. I'm not a big fan. You know what? Before we go out, we didn't have time to talk about it, and you may or may not have watched Slow Horses Series 2, but I do want to say on Apple TV, Slow Horses has been one of the great joys of my television viewing, one of the best things on TV right now. These are 6-episode seasons, and they star Gary Oldman at the peak of his powers as an uncouth UK spy master named Jackson Lamb, who has made his share of missteps and is so reviled by his bosses that he's banished from MI5 headquarters in London to a rundown annex where he presides over a motley crew of agents, most of whom have been demoted for their own screw-ups. I really love this show. And of course, even though they've been put under the gun, they may be MI5's best hope in a crisis. These shows, by the way, are adapted from a series of incredibly entertaining novels by British author Mick Herron. And you've got young Swain Jack Loudon as the second lead, one of Lamb's agents, and the elegant Kristen Scott Thomas as a conniving MI5 director, determined to keep Lamb and his crew out of her way. I love Slow Horses. A third season is being shot and will drop hopefully later this year. If you have Apple TV, I highly recommend Slow Horses.
Yeah, I thought it was very good, the episodes I've seen. You recommended a film that I will give the Golden Globes credit for reminding me I need to watch, and that's RRR. It's mentioned in the chat here by a couple of people. So thank you, Michael Snyder, for that. We are out of time. We are now running into Golden Globe overages. That kind of.
I want to thank my parents. I want to thank Mark. Never mind.
Michael, bye-bye.
See you, buddy.
Thank you very much. He comes and goes on a rainbow, but the rainbow has the Friday off. So he is Michael Snyder, everybody. Yes, the Culture Blaster. Find him across social media at Culture Blaster, and you can find him in the Marina Times as well. This has been something of an experiment to see if we could kind of take this show and, do a guerrilla version of it where we just plug in and do it. And I think it's gone fairly well. I mean, given the limitations. And Albert, thank you for stepping up. Kim, thank you for stepping up.
Yeah.
But particularly Albert. I dumped a lot of stuff on Albert. He had to really kind of, really connect with a lot of different things. And so I really appreciate it, man. You're the coolest. I appreciate it.
It was a good show. Very good show.
So we're not going to have Albert Monday through Thursday of next week. We'll have Tony.
Yeah.
Kim and I will be here.
Yeah.
A Monday show is a little bit up in the air as to, Kim, you may be hosting and I may be joining remotely, but we'll get to that on Monday. I also may very well be back in the studio. So
yeah.
I wanted to give a couple other shout outs to people who have supported us along the way today. I really appreciate your support. Again, we're a crowd-funded show, so you're the crowd and this is the funding. Thank you. TG, happy Friday from Scrappy the Frenchie. Oh, Scrappy the Frenchie. Thank you, TG. Shout out to Scrappy. Shout out. I mean, I'm going to make sure I can see everything. Yeah, better. Gloria Perry, $4.99. What up, Gloria? Shout out, Gloria. Thank you, Gloria, for so much for the support. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Daryl Leffler, $4.99. Thank you, Daryl Leffler. Daryl, couldn't do without you, bud. And I see the music. Maybe he's a musician. It's funny. At the old station, I'll tell you this very quickly, and then we have to wrap up. I know Nikki's show is starting.
Well, I'm the one starting it, so.
Oh, okay.
I figured, as soon as you're done, I'll just go over there and start that show.
Okay, but I will be quick. I don't want to keep.
Who needs Mark Thompson?
But I do want to thank you, Daryl. But your music notes, Daryl, made me think of something which we used to do at the old station. I would look for music for the bumps. I would always try to find a weird cover of something that I thought would be good, some kind of even like a jazz thing, maybe as a cover of some mainstream pop song or whatever. And I always say, Chris, and Chris was always the coolest. Like I'd send it to him and he'd always find whatever I was looking for, And on the show, people would always text in, wow, Chris is really great. He finds these incredible tunes. And I would always say, yeah, Chris is so good. But Chris wasn't really tracking them down. It was me for the most part. But I'll tell you what, but the great thing about Chris, and I really do miss Chris, is that Chris would track down like new tracks. Like he would say, hey, Mark, I'm going to play something new today. Like this is charting, and I think we ought to have it on the show. So he really was connected to the show. I must tell you, I really miss him. And I was in touch with him a couple times by text, but he's got his own thing going. He lives in the kind of deep East Bay, right, Kim?
Yeah, he lived out in, I want to say, Manteca.
Yeah.
And he commuted every day in on BART, long commute.
Yeah, he would take the bus from Manteca to BART, and then he'd BART all the way to the city.
Or the ACE train. He was on ACE train at some point in his commute. Yeah.
I mean, he would leave the house at like 4:30 in the morning to get to the station in time. Pretty wild. So anyway, Albert, thank you. Yes, we have come to the end of the show and the end of the week. I have to say it has been one of those weeks that's had challenges, but it's one of those weeks that has had triumphs. So I'm hoping for more triumphs and challenges in the week ahead. Go Niners, I would say. And please don't let the rain be so intense that we have more problems with flooding in California. I appreciate everybody who is part of this show, part of this community. Share the show. Slap us a thumbs up if you can find it in your heart. It's free. And if you continue to spread the word, we hope to grow the show in new and exciting ways and evolve in the new year. So, thanks, everybody. And until Monday, bye-bye.
I'm Sheriff Stevens for the Mark Thompson.